Hello, can you hear me? Right, I think you should all be there with me now. Go over. I'm just going to get the right question up. You should have copies of these questions. Yeah, this is the one that we're going to do. So it's the one about the Executive Board of PT Hospitals. 25 marks. So how long would that normally give you? 45 minutes. Minutes, not marks. I wish it could give you 45 marks. But yes, minutes. So 18 minutes for section A, and for section B, the remaining amount. Okay? So what I'd like you to do, I'm not going to give you the full 45 minutes because I don't think you need to, but I do want you to read through this question, think about all the things that we talked about earlier in project management, and focus very much, as it says in part B, explain the different stages that would be involved in the project management process to design and implement the new pay and rewards system for PT Hospital. Okay, so I want you to think about the different stages. So we talked about the initiation stage, the planning phase, and all of those different stages. Again, if you've forgotten what they are, it's not such a big deal. I will remind you. Okay, I think this is probably the best list to give you. Starting up the project and directing the project. Then the main ones are the ones below that. Initiating, planning, controlling, monitoring, and closing. Okay, so those are the ones that you should keep in your head. What I want you to do is really focus from initiating the project down to closing. Read the scenario very carefully. And remember what the examiner said. It's not about just telling us what the different stages are. It's specifically to design and implement the new pay and reward system for PT Hospital. So if you can name the kinds of people who should be on the team, not the names, but the positions maybe, or which area of the hospital they should be. What things will need to be planned, what would be controlled, how you would monitor, that's how you're going to get the marks. 15 marks going for this. If you think there's initiating, planning, controlling, monitoring, and closing, that's 5 subparts to it. So as long as you write at least 2 or 3 good points for each of them, you're likely to get your 15 marks. For part A, describe the ways in which the proposed project in PT Hospital differs from business as usual work. Business as usual is just everything we do every day. So how is the project going to be different to business as usual work? So just think about that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about, I'll see how you're going after 20 minutes to half an hour. I do want you to write it in Word so that I can get you to cut and paste bits into the box and we can discuss the answers. Okay? So I'm going to put the question back up. Hopefully you've written down initiating, planning, controlling, monitoring, and closing. And concentrate on the question. 20 to 30 minutes. Get started with these 2 answers first of all. Right, so the first part of the question is asking us, if I just bring it down. Okay, the first part of the question is asking us about ways in which the proposed project differs from what we call business as usual. And if we look at the answers that we've got up, so Sean McGum's put up, usual activities of the HR team would be preparing the payroll and administering it. The government requirement is to reform the reward system. In order to achieve this project cannot be taken as a regular activity. Absolutely. It needs to be paid special attention and involvement from dedicated resources. The time frame should be met and it cannot have any delay as usual business. Now, I think that's a really good point. The only bits that I would add to it, Sean McGum, it's actually said here that the government target is May 2011. So remember what we talked about using the scenario. So over here, as much as possible, we should use the scenario. It tells us that this is happening in May 2011. So what we should do is mention that in your answer. If you add that into your answer, it shows that you're using the scenario and you can use the knowledge there. So I think that's the only thing that I would add to that bit. What you then talk about, the payroll project team needs to be identified, a project manager chosen. Now, Sean McGunn, are you answering part A or part B? when you're talking about the payroll project team needs to be identified and all of that. This para is part A, and then the rest of it is part B. Okay, fine. So I'm going back up. What I'm going to do is skip past the rest of your answer, and I just want to look at the part A's of everyone else's, which I can't really see. Francis talks about the team members and the planning phase and all of that. So Francis has gone straight on to part B. Yeah, Upendra has started with part A. In normal business of PT Hospital, patients are the customers, whereas in this project, the HR department executing the payroll system and the employees of the hospital are the customers. Yep. Different stages would be to identify the project team in place, prepare the team, and that's very true. So, Upendra, in your answer, the issue is that I think the first paragraph that you've written is good because it talks about the difference, but then you start going on to, I think your first paragraph is fine, but I think, Upendra, then you go too much into part B. So what I want to do is I just want to concentrate. It's very important that we specifically answer each part of the question and make sure that we've thought about each part of the section. So I'm going to put a few points up over here on the paper for part A. The things that I think you needed to include in part A is overall a project has stages. Business as usual doesn't really. I mean, I am doing it in bullet points, but I'm expecting you to write it fully in the exam. So I think to explain that, you know, a project is different. They have a particular life cycle. I think we can put that in stages and life cycle. But business as usual doesn't. I think the other kinds of things that we can say is with a project there's an identification of a need, and we specifically focus on that, and we have a solution to that need as well. Whereas business as usual, it could be anything in the business. So again, if you look at what I'm doing, I'm specifically trying to answer the question that they've given to us, and their question to us is describe the ways in which the proposed project differs, and that's the word, that's the big important word here, differs from business as usual. Okay? So describe the ways in which the proposed project at PT Hospital differs from business as usual. So all the time when we're writing, we should be doing that. We should be saying, okay, what's a proposed project and why is that different to business as usual? So these are some of the things that you need to put in. I think at this stage it's probably worth explaining what the project objective is. So have the project objective in there as well. Okay, other things that you could have put in. You need to talk about the fact that it's non-repetitive with a project. A project is non-repetitive. Business as usual is completely repetitive, whereas business as usual, repetitive. Worth putting in that we need cross-functional teams on projects and not necessary in business as usual. Okay, so I think those are 5 points that you could have put in quite easily. Are you comfortable with those 5? And can you see how they're slightly different to the ones that you've put down? Okay, so again, what's the key? The key actually is the planning. It's reading what the requirement is, analyzing that requirement and saying exactly what is the examiner looking for. What is going to make my answer stand out from everyone else's? Loads of people will explain exactly what a project is, but they won't explain how it's differed from business as usual. And that's what he's asking for. A proposed project, it's somebody who's not an ICWA can learn that from a textbook and write that down. But the point is, at the gateway to the strategic level, can you write it down and explain why it's different? So hopefully that bit's okay.